Today's show is brought to you by homebrewsupply.com. Right now, for the month of July, get refurbished ball lock kegs for cheap, 20% off premium Stephan Becker faucets, and free shipping on orders of $100 or more when you use the promo code JULY. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now and let us help make your next brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Oh man, coughing. Welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. Though it started off with a nice shot of your head. I'm sorry about that. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, and I already did the spoiler alert for the video people watching. Today I'm joined, he's back on the show. It took him long enough. He is the president and chief keg washer at kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Sir, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. I have a couple of initial complaints. How come you have a microphone that comes down to you and I have to totally mess with this one? And your background's much nicer than mine, too.
Well, no, my background right now is just my green screen because my office is a wreck. I have not...
I'm used to seeing your office back there. That's why I said you have a nice background.
That's right, exactly. My office is still recovering from HomebrewCon. I've got all my swag still all around. I've got Amazon boxes. My wife has been doing some summer cleaning, rearranging, and my office is the catch-all for trash or like cardboard.
So the barn, the outside of the barn right now, it looks like a bomb exploded in it because I had all that stuff I was putting together for the rental equipment. I mean, for the rental houses that I went to work on, and then of course, Stephan's going to be here tomorrow. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but. Also, as I was packing, I ran into like an 8-foot snake.
Shut up!
In the garage, in the barn, and I thought it was a rattlesnake. So I was in there pulling kegs out with a stick, and pushing them to the side and pulling all the other crap out in the middle. And then after working on it, I finally realized it was a giant bull snake that was going at I had a chicken that was laying some eggs in the barn, and it was coming in to eat the eggs, but I couldn't get rid of it. And I didn't realize those suckers can climb like crazy. So I'm trying to push him out with a stick in the barn, and all of a sudden he just starts climbing up the purlin in my metal building, going up to like 2 stories high. And it's a long story, but I battled him for like 3 hours and in the process destroyed my barn. So
that made sense. Bull snakes are the good kind, I thought. Like
they are the good kind, but they still scare the crap out of you when they're 8 feet long and you're trying to grab some stuff from underneath the counter and you run into a snake.
Now, Todd, are you sure it was 8 feet long? You have some measurement issues. You've told me before, like when the fish is this big. I mean, come on. Was it really?
Dude, it's huge. They're huge. Have you ever? Bull snakes get really long.
I believe you. So is that?
I mean, it was as big around as big around as my wrist, and I have a fairly.
You do.
It's a big ass snake.
I'm glad you held your hand up to the camera like that so people could see a comparison, because your head is massive. We already all know that. So seeing your wrist up to your head.
Big Head Todd, wasn't that a band?
Big Head Todd. I don't know, mister. I'm not that old. Is that the culprit that's been eating all the eggs? Because I knew you were having. You were having missing eggs. Your wife was telling me when we were in Rhode Island that
they're attacking my. They're attacking the eggs. So.
But that snake is brilliant, because what she was telling me is that it's not touching the chickens because it understands the circle of life. Like if it kills the chicken, then there's no more egg.
No more meal ticket then.
Smart snake. We could learn something from them. And speaking of that, actually, I saw you. I want to get you got something off your chest. I'd like to say a complaint. Or bring it up. I saw you. You came into San Marcos for a week, which is a town over from me. We met for breakfast. I happened to be 3.5 minutes late. and I got a 20-minute lecture from you on not the being late part, but I was on the motorcycle, which is why I didn't answer my phone when you were calling me, and I didn't wear a helmet. And I think I seriously, you were talking down to me like you're my father about how stupid I am. I'm gonna die. Motorcycles are stupid.
Well, not wearing a helmet's especially stupid on a motorcycle. But hey, I mentioned it to my wife later, and I literally did I tell you this already?
No, you
I
haven't.
said, Josh showed up at the restaurant and he wasn't wearing a helmet on his motorcycle, and she went, "He has 3 kids. Is he an idiot or what?" This is my sweet wife that said that.
Well, at least she asked it as a question. Not like if it was your mother, she just would have said, "Dumbass." Like it wouldn't have been a question. Actually, she wouldn't even have to know I wasn't wearing a helmet for her to call me that.
So what was the premise? I mean, what happened in the end? You thought about it and decided you're going to wear a helmet going forward, or?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm going to now. You changed my heart. You changed my mind. I go the back roads. I don't go. If I was going, when I go the highway, of course I wear a helmet.
I'm pretty sure if the back roads, the asphalt is just as hard as the asphalt on the highway.
It might be. It might be. I don't know. I got a decent life insurance policy on me, or my wife does. So,
Yeah, I don't really. I'd really rather you stick around.
That's all I wanted to hear. I have it recorded now for the rest of the time on this podcast that Todd likes me. Got you. So yeah, you were out of town. We haven't seen you since HomebrewCon. So
it's been crazy.
It's been real crazy. And, one more thing for some house cleaning. James' computer took a dump. And the reason why we all 3 have not been able to be on the show since our Homebrew Recon cap episode, which wasn't Todd, it was Joe, is because James' computer just decided, hey, I don't want to work anymore. So he's working on some Windows Vista machine that can't handle a video call software. So we will get that figured out and have all 3 of us on. And actually, next week's episode.
That's our excuse, at least, right?
That is our excuse. But it has been crazy busy. But before we get into the show and the other small talk, I do want to do a recap from your perspective of HomebrewCon, because I know yours is more unique in the fact that you work the booth, but you also get to walk around. Would you say, we haven't officially talked about it on the show with you, I think I would say that this was one of the most successful shows in regards to our booth and our showing. What were your overall thoughts about HomebrewCon this year?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, we didn't show Keg Connection, didn't have part of the booth, and the reason for that is because Homebrew Supply and Brewer's Friend have such a great relationship. We really wanted to highlight that, and I think we're going to continue to try to grow that relationship as well. And then CM Becker's booth, I mean, it was crazy busy. We had so many people come to the booth. This may sound like bragging. I never would want to brag, but I think we might have had the best beer in our booth of any booth in the show. I had several people tell me that.
I was going to say, I heard that frequently too, and it wasn't just from us telling each other. It was actual attendees who we'd see them. And what I love about people who come back to the booth to drink your beer is they almost have this guilt of it's like when you go to Sam's Club or Costco. I don't know if Costco does samples. Sam's Club does samples on the weekends. And I know this because my parents raised me to where lunch at Sam's meant we're just walking the whole thing on Sunday and having.
Right. You don't want to spend the 99 cents for the hot dog.
Yeah, exactly. See, exactly. So, but there was a little bit of inherent shame when you go to you get into the little turkey line, you get your sample, and then 10 minutes later when you walk yourself back, there was a little bit of inherent shame where you're are they going to recognize me? Do I need to say something oh, that turkey was so good, can I have another? Blah, 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 blah. HomebrewCon's the same deal, but the funny thing is we don't care because we don't want to take any beer home. So we're you want another pour? We will happily give you another pour because they're in 2 or 3 ounce increments anyway. So please come back. And we had a ton of repeat customers. My favorite funny thing is we had vendors around us that kept coming back and tasting it. They'd have a slow time in their booth. And then, so they would come over, get a pour. I was surprised by how few booths were pouring this year, though. That did seem weird to me.
Yeah, it was strange. There weren't a lot of booths pouring. And, we brought. Everybody was worried we weren't bringing enough beer, and we ended up having beer left over. In fact, we gave a really, really good deal. We sold our whole system so we wouldn't have to ship it back. And somebody, a homebrew club, got a really, really good deal on that. And they left with some of our beer because it was still in the kegs. So
yeah, we ended up selling them the kegs too. Yeah, we sold. Yeah. The only thing we didn't sell them were the digital displays that I used, those right. Amazon Kindle tablets. Which today's Prime Day that we're recording this on, they had great deals. I almost picked up more, but we don't need them, so I didn't. Yeah. I didn't buy them. But they have they're $25 or pardon me, $28 maybe or 30.
Yeah, we may want to. If they're updated, we'll talk about it after the show.
Yeah, totally. But I was like, it's Amazon does such a good job of impulse pricing to where I'm just like, take my money. I don't need it, but take my money. Right. I give my wife crap for doing that at stores, but I get it, honey. I'm sorry for yelling at you. Also at HomebrewCon we had great time hanging out with other industry people. After the show, we did a very spontaneous beer share on that last night, that Saturday night, and Brittany from Country Malt Homebrew, or Country Malt Group Homebrew, I think is what they changed it from. It used to be Brewcraft USA, which was always owned by Country Malt Group, and I think now the homebrew side of it just calls himself Country Malt Group Homebrew. Brittany and her husband came down and found us and sat down. Ian and Robert from Pico Brew.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
We had a ton of fun, and I think I learned about myself that I really like mead. That we sat down, and there was a group.
We got to contact that guy. Didn't we get his card?
I emailed him already. I put his number in my phone, and thankfully, because intoxicated Joshua doesn't always remember everything, and so I
know the feeling. Yeah.
So I put,
and you guys had to fly out early the next day. I got to sleep in as late as I wanted. Y'all must have been a little rough the next morning.
Oh yeah. Quick side note. So I am obviously worn out. My throat was gone. I'm talking like this for the whole night, and it was 2 a.m. and Todd was pouring, and I go, "Oh no, you're about to go." It was last call at the bar, so it was like 1:50. And we were doing a beer show already, and we were doing whiskey drinks, and it was just getting fun. And you were like, "Oh, I'm going to go to the bar and get a drink. What do y'all want?" And everyone's giving your order. You get to me, and I say, "I think I'm all right. I might go up." And you made a very mean joke about me. You questioned my masculinity. I think you called me a woman. You said some mean things to me, and so
I don't recall that.
Of course you don't. And I ended up staying down there. So what time did we end up going back up to the room? 3:30?
I don't know. What time did y'all have to? God, y'all got up early. Wow, I feel bad for you.
Oh, shut up. That's why. That's the whole time.
Why do you think I was paying for the drinks that night?
The whole time you're chastising me, it never clicked with me. Oh yeah, he doesn't have to wake up. But believe it or not, I'm still young enough. I tell myself I drink enough water in the morning, and I do this routine of cardio, like in-room cardio stuff, to where I don't have too bad of a headache or hangover. And I pace myself too. Like during that beer share,
I really did pretty good on that night. Yeah.
Exactly. And but like I was saying, rewinding a little bit, when we first sat down, there was a group of people who were obviously from the conference, because they had also this huge thing of all these bottles. They still had their lanyards on, and they heard us talking about beer. And the guy came over and said, "What do you guys think about mead?" And it was 2 guys. We were like, maybe. And he gave some mead to us, and my goodness, it was delicious.
Yeah, I was actually like, I'd love to, because I really want to do some mead, which I'm going to do now. We've talked to 2 different people the show. I'm doing mead. So,
but remember, they had very nice things to say about Charlie, but you were like, we're going to do Charlie's recipe. And they're like, "No, you're not. Don't do it. Here's a book." They gave resources, which I have, and when we get into mead, I'll publish all that too, like all the.
Yeah, we need to do a mead section. We'll talk about that.
Remember, I believe that they said you can turn around a fantastic mead. I think it was 3 months, wasn't what they said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That sounds a lot better than Charlie's recipe, which was like a year, I believe.
Well, they said his was old school. Like, that's the way you used to do it, and you don't have to do it that way anymore. Why do it the hard way when there's a lot of better products now that will help you do it faster and better.
Exactly. So. And they were old guys. So, if these old guys are willing to make change, I mean, golly, there's hope for Everyone usually
Yeah.
would.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, mead is coming down the pipe. You had already mentioned it, and I'll briefly touch on it. Our buddy, our German brother from the fatherland, Stephan, will be here. That's why. So we're recording this on Monday the 15th for this week. Because Stefan's going to be here Tuesday through Monday, and when I come up, we're going to record an episode probably from your barn, I'd imagine.
Okay. That'd be fun.
Wouldn't that make sense? You have
Oh, we have Alt on tap, which is, he's from Dusseldorf, and we've got Kölsch, and he may use that as a mouthwash before he tries the Alt or between different beers to clear his palate. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying to James last week, my legitimate biggest fear with Stefan coming is having to admit to him the Kölsch phase I'm going through. Here's my
I got an announcement to make. I was dying to tell you this. I was waiting for the show. James is starting to burn out on Kölsch.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'm ride or die, buddy. I'm ride or die. What do you mean he's burning out on Kölsch?
He's like, I'm brewed it a lot. It's too sweet. It tastes too sweet all of a sudden. He's brewing so the good news is he's brewing a Pilsner right now, a very good traditional Pilsner and one of my favorite styles for the summer.
Oh yeah.
So I'm very excited about him, trying to brew some different things.
I
always take a cut. So yeah.
If I had a lager setup, a good lager setup, I would totally brew a Pilsner. But I don't have an easy way of doing it, which actually one of the questions we talk about it, and so I'll get into that more later. But I would love to do, like, I want to brew a Marzen right now for Oktoberfest. We need a better setup. So I need to buy something now so we could brew the Marzen maybe in a couple weekends and then have that ready for Oktoberfest. But I don't know. James, here's what I'll predict. And James, when you're listening, you can comment in the YouTube part below. One of these days we're gonna have a Kölsch. He's gonna drink it and he's gonna go, "That's too many hops in there, man. That's too many hops on the Kölsch." That's
whatever. I don't think that's. I give James more. I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm kidding. I think
he's going to start liking hops a little more now because if the beer tastes too sweet, it may be because he's hop deficient. His body is going through a hop deficiency right now.
It's all, again, the circle of life.
It's like a vitamin.
His username's Texas Gearhead. It used to be like Texas Hophead, and then he changed it.
I didn't know that.
So he's working his way back around to being Hophead again, probably. I went to a draft house. I already told you off air, in Kyle, called Aviators. It's a pizza joint, and they had 42 taps, and of those 42, 38 of them basically were IPAs or double IPAs or some kind of haze. Yeah. I told you though, the funny thing is they served their beer in frozen pint glasses. So I was like, no wonder everyone's loving these double IPAs. They can't taste it.
It's 35 degrees.
Yeah.
In a frozen glass, and the beer's so freaking cold, your taste buds don't taste the hops at all.
Yeah.
It's like a double IPA tastes like a Bud Light, right?
Exactly. So people are like, I really like double IPAs. These are great. I ended up I was drinking Swifty all night. Shout out to Real Ale. That is a delicious pale ale. And I would say, it is, if James, the reason I poked fun at him about saying a Kölsch would be too hoppy is because you brewed a pale ale that he tasted and was like, that's an IPA, man. That's a lot of hops. And you're like, no, it's not. It's just
wasn't.
It's just a pale ale. Swifty would have been in that realm too, where you drink it and it's like, I mean, it's a pale ale, but you would be like, well, that's pretty hop forward. But
to be fair, there are some pale ales now that are as hoppy as an IPA. I taste them all the time, and I go, "That's really good," but that's not a pale ale. That sucker's like, 60 or 70. So,
but the good thing is, it's 2019, and much like people, beers can be whatever they want, man. They can identify as whatever they want, and no judgment here.
Right.
Which is okay. So yeah, we talked about HomebrewCon. We're happy to have you back, sort of. And Stefan's coming to town. Brew Days. My pop and I, when I had him on the show, I had made the comment that, oh, we're probably not going to brew for a while because it's so hot. And I think that kind of challenged him. And he's like, no, we're brewing soon. So I think we're going to brew. I think he wants to do an IPA. So we're going to brew here pretty soon. Do you have any upcoming brew days? You haven't touched your system since that delicious ESB. And so I want to know.
Yeah, and I have the ES. I had some ESB last night. Damn, it's good. It needed, like, it had 2 more weeks because I was gone, and damn, it was good. Anyway, I have this rental property I'm trying to get ready to rent. So I worked on that last weekend, this weekend. Stephan will be here this coming weekend, and then I'll be back to the rent houses the weekend after that. I don't see myself being able to brew for at least 3 weeks. I'm dying to brew something on my new system. I just absolutely don't have a day to do it right now, but I'm shooting for 3 weeks from now.
You should take that foundry with you to San Marcos, and we'll brew while you're up here. Boom, boom, boom. It's not on your system, but and that's the whole point. I am dying because you told me next time you brew in your system, I would get an invite. I don't know if you remember that. I want to come brew up on your system just because that would be my first experience with a homemade system like that. I mean, from scratch, y'all literally turn this animal, or I don't know what you call the system.
We should brew with Stephan.
Boom, boom, boom. Win, win, win. Do you think he'd be down for that? Oh, he has to be.
Let's ask him when he gets here. We'll brew with Stephan like on Friday.
Okay, yeah, I'm there.
Taking him out, see if we can get James to come out. We'll all go out there and brew. We can talk, brew at the same time. Stephan would love to do it. You know, he's been around beer his whole life, but he's never actually brewed. That would be a fun deal to do.
That would be real fun.
Teach a German to brew.
Teach a German to brew.
Teach a German to brew day. I think
I like that. That would be a good title for the YouTube videos. You'd get a lot of hits, but teach a German to brew. So thank you for being back on the show. I have some questions for us if you're okay with that. I'm going to go right into question number 1, which was submitted by our buddy Greg Z using the submission format homebrewhappyhour.com. Greg wrote in, hey guys, longtime listener, but first time submitting a question. You don't have to answer this question on the podcast if you have a lot of questions to address, but it's been on my mind for a while. I was wondering if Joshua, I was wondering with all the Kölsch that you consume, when you brew it, do you also lager it? Do you notice a difference if you sneak a pour before its lagering phase? I could be wrong, but I always thought Kölsch was more of an ale than a lager, but it is still lagered traditionally. I just brewed a Kölsch, it's in my teaser now, and was wondering if 2 wheats at serving pressure will be any different than 4 to 5 wheats in cold storage for a Kölsch. Love the show. Cheers, Greg. That's a great question.
Good question. Yeah.
Kölsch, I am going. It's not a shtick, guys. Like I am not getting burned out. Our other buddy Jeff had always he keeps asking if I'm still drinking breakfast stout or darker beers. I'm not right now because it's warm, but I've not given up on other styles. Kölsch has just been my go-to with the heat. But Todd, it is an ale.
Yeah, so it's definitely an ale.
But when you do lager,
you use an ale yeast.
Yep.
But you lager. Yeah, and just because you use an ale yeast doesn't mean you can't lager. The flip side to that a lot of Americans might know about is a steam beer, California steam beer, which is, Anchor is the one that originally did that beer.
Yeah, California Common, right?
Anchor calls it Anchor Steam. They call it a steam beer, but I think California Common is the non-trademark name for it, right?
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to put the T right next to it if we say the word steam or the R.
But they're kind of the ones that started that, I believe. That's right.
Yeah.
And they use a lager yeast and don't lager it. So they brew it. They brew it like an ale, but they use a lager yeast. Now, the temperature in San Francisco is fairly consistently low. It never gets super hot there. Well, maybe it does now, but not. I go there. I've been there in the summer and had to put a sweater on because it got cold and misty during the day. So that's kind of the opposite of Kölsch. Whereas with Kölsch, it's an ale yeast, but you lager it. I can definitely tell it when it's fresh and you haven't lagered it. I can definitely tell the difference from when it's aged a few weeks. I can also tell a difference after it's been pressurized in the kegerator for, because sometimes it'll be in my kegerator for a month.
Yep.
And I swear it gets better every day. So I think you do need a couple of weeks would be good. Now, I will say that we do not practice what we preach, because often after about a week, we're like, this is starting to taste pretty good. Let's keg this sucker and put it in the kegerator. And we continue to lager it as we drink it from in our kegerator.
Yeah, you took the answer out of my mouth, because what I was going to say, when I started using, like, at James' recommendation, the Dieter yeast from Imperial, the Kölsch, the last 2 batches that we've brewed, we being my pop and I, have finished out in 3 or 4 days. You let it sit for another 5, and then boom, we forced carbon, we're drinking it. I am with you on the exact same page. So do we lager it before we get into it? Most of the time, no. But like the Kölsch, yesterday, me, my dad, and my brother were playing a triangle, three-way game of bad tossing. Cornhole is what we call it down here, but I feel gross saying that word. So bad tossing, and very hot, like 98 degrees. The heat index was up there too. So I had my Hawaiian shirt on, halfway buttoned, and drinking refreshing Kölsch. And the whole time, granted, it could have been because it was hot, but this was thirst quenching. I was thinking how much even better this Kölsch tasted now than a month ago, or 3 weeks when we first broke into it.
Right.
And like you said with your ESB, I don't know if it's a mind over matter. I don't know the science behind it. James isn't on the show to tell me big words for why it is how this is. But beer, in my experience, the ones we're brewing, just, man, I give it, like, I'm going to drink it as soon as I can because I'm impatient, but I look forward to drinking it a month later when it's still there in the kegerator. It's just that much more clear. It's that much more crisp. This Kölsch, it was not sweet, but it wasn't bitter. It tasted like a cloud. I mean, I could write a romance novel about the Kölsch, and that would just feed into the.
Please don't.
But I could.
Please don't do it.
Hey, you should come on our Facebook page and see the amount of people that go, man, I thought that you were just being stupid, but now I'm all into Kölsch. I'm starting a movement, buddy. If James wants to get off the train, I'll throw him out. There's a pile of dead bodies behind this train of naysayers like you. But yeah, Greg, I have
Kölsch on my kegerator right now. I mean, I'm not a naysayer.
Here's what I'm gonna do when we're there and we're recording with Stephan. We're gonna have the beer, and I'm gonna say something like, Stephan, can you believe how much into Kölsch James is? This is ridiculous, right? Alt beer all the way, am I right? And we'll see how that goes.
Oh, God. James is going to come unglued. Yeah, this is it. This will be interesting.
Yeah, well, of course I'm going to admit to him, because I was telling James last week, because I don't know if he remembers my interview when you first went over to Germany in Cologne, or in Dusseldorf. Whoa. And you had on Stephan and Claudia. This was before we were a video podcast. We were just audio. You had him on, and he picked up, and the first thing he said, we'd never met before at all, and the first thing he says is, Kölsch is not beer. Alt is beer. That was the first thing he said to me. Never met me in my life. And now every time we see him, and when we were there, and he's obviously, Stephan's a very funny guy. Funny guy, and has a good sense of humor. So he always, when we go there and we go to Cologne, he's always ribs us and gives us a hard time. So it will be very interesting to see how he reacts. I think he'll like your Kölsch, because it's the batch that James brewed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That we had that on tap as well. We were going between that one and our batch yesterday, and they're both incredibly delicious. I want to get back to that alt at your house, because that's the same batch we took with us.
Yeah, there's not much left at all, because it was only 2 gallons to start with. So
I didn't know you only had 2 gallons.
Yeah, so we'll have to. I'm not going to drink any more of it. I had a half a glass last night, but I'm trying to save it for Stephan.
Yeah, no, he needs to have. Yeah, we need to save it for Stephan, because that alt that James brewed. We didn't have any Kölsch at the show, and so all I was drinking basically was alt. And then in my head, I was just like, okay, I'm an alt guy.
What about the ESB?
No, the ESB is wonderful, but the ESB is not a style that I get in, like, fixated on. I'm telling
Really? No, I'm definitely
Ta-
fixated
I
on
know
that.
all I say is Kölsch, but it's because of the temperatures and whatnot. But I'm still on board with starting a brew pub or a nano brewery and only serving Alton Kölsch. I that's the dream, buddy. That's the dream. Don't make that face. Oh gosh, you're whatever. But yes, wrapping up. I'm segueing out of your toxicity over to the Dred's question. Sneaking a pour. I would say this, especially for home brewers: drink your beer when you want. But aging is gonna make it better. And by aging, I just mean time, not purposed aging. But like, if you want to get the most presentable, best version of your Kolsch, what would you say, Todd, is an adequate time for cold conditioning it? Would you say
I mean,
3 weeks?
if you got a couple weeks, I think a couple weeks is good. I mean, one of the greatest things I have now in my brew room is that fermenter with a sample valve on it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so funny because as it's sitting there, I ferment in it, but I also lager in it. And I'm constantly taking a quarter of a glass out every couple of days, and I try it and I go, oh yeah, that's gonna be good. But I'm saying that's gonna be good because I know it's gonna get better as it ages. So, there's a diminishing returns definitely, but I'd say a couple of weeks would really help it.
And Greg, it would help if you had the what y'all have, the CF15 is what you have in your thing from Spike, the conical filter or the conical fermenter, pardon me. That makes a huge difference when you're able to have a sample valve. Like I can't open up my carboy and it dive in and try it. The oxidation will occur if you do that. But Todd's fortunate enough to have the fantastic Spike CF15. I was looking at getting a CF10 for me and my dad because they're not irrationally priced for what you get. Especially like I think I can get everything said and done for it'd be like right under $1,000, but that would be like the bells and whistles, and it could be a serving vessel as well at that price point. Like,
but you're talking about putting a glycol system on it.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
$1,000, I'd have a glycol system on it. We could literally make it a serving vessel. Definitely turn. Everything can happen in it, and the convenience of that is pretty valuable in my book. But anyways, Greg, thank you so much for submitting the question. We got one more. It's a very quick, easy one. Kind of up your alley. I mean, maybe James would have been better for it, but I can say that about any question. Brian C., using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com, Brian wrote in and he said, is there a reason I can't make my starter in the fermentation bucket or carboy and then dump the chilled wort onto it rather than pitching the yeast starter into the fermenter after the wort? Todd, I took this question for two reasons. One, I don't know the answer, like most questions. But two, the main reason, I've never heard of this. This is the first time this concept's even been put into my world. I never would have thought. Again, also, me and my dad have never made starters because Owen from Imperial has embedded in my mind, you don't need starters. And we're never doing big bodied, like when I do a lager, I'll probably do a starter because James has also embedded in my mind that that's the appropriate time to do a starter or pitch a lot more yeast. And then we've never done big bodied beers or big, a lot of high ABV beers. So I haven't had to think about a starter. You've done starters before, I believe. Have you ever heard of it?
I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, you could do that. The only challenges I see are if a lot of people use a stir plate with a starter. It's going to be hard to put a 5-gallon or 7-gallon fermenter on a stir plate unless you made one somehow. So that could be a problem. I mean, you want to make sure you sanitize the heck out of it, just like anything else you would make a starter in. And also it's going to be spread out so much. You'd have to make a fairly decent amount of volume. I mean, one of the problems I would see is, it's very, very, it would be a very thin layer of wort you were working with. I don't know. I mean, I think the answer is, yeah, you could do it, but you're probably gonna have to play around with the volume of the starter you'd need to make, or possibly tilt the bucket to one side, so it's kind of in one area of the bucket. I don't know how you would overcome those challenges, but I mean, theoretically, it should work. I've never done it, and I've never heard of anybody doing it, but I mean, yeah, it should work.
Maybe we try. This is one of those things we could put on our list of videos we should make or experiments we should do, because this one's very interesting. Only 'cause I get the mindset. Like, Brian sounds like a man of convenience, such as myself, and so I understand like if I can kill two birds and just make the starter in the vessel it's going to end up in anyway, and then not think about it till brew day, and then when you pour the wort in and boom, bada bing, you're not having to pitch yeast. It's already been pitched, more or less, or whatever you want to call it at that point. But we have all the equipment to do it, or to at least try it. You had talked about making the starter in that vessel. Could you not make the starter in something in the not fur? What is the name of those beaker things? They have
You can. Yeah, I mean, we know we can make a starter in something else, but he's asking about making it actually in the bucket, though.
Oh, right. I'm saying though, could you what is the weird name of those things that you make the starters in? The Erliner.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Oh, no.
Now you made me forget that that
flask.
thing.
The flask. Yeah. Now we're about to get 100 messages straight to my Instagram and Facebook about how much of an idiot I am. Not a stranger to those. But yeah, he's talking about specifically making it in that, but you can make it in something else and then maybe pour it in there and then leave it in there for the brew day. And then, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
you mean just pour it in there first? Yeah.
Yes.
I guess my comment would be, why though? If you're going to make it in that anyway, just pour it in. I mean, what would be the advantage?
I guess maybe to see, would it be more spread out amongst the wort if you started with it as your base?
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't either, but I don't know. It'd be an interesting thing to try just for the sake of trying it. I mean, I say interesting as in like, when I say interesting.
And I agree. I think you should try it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That your face is just gone lifeless as I'm saying, like, we should try this. I could read it in your eyes.
No, I fully think that you should try it.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Anyways, I think that's an interesting concept. If anyone listening, because we're fortunate enough now that we've established this relationship with our listeners where they don't mind commenting their what they think. If you have experience with this, or if you have an opinion on this, please let us know, because we would love to update on this. Or if Brian, if you try it, let us know how it worked out. And it might be, if we did a video, it might be good. I'm going to tease something real quick. We are working on a very cool project that may or may not have to do with merging a huge database of information collectively with our big database of information and relaunching homebrewhappyhour.com in the very near future. I've already teased it on our social media, but it's very exciting. I'm speaking in code because you already know what I'm talking about, but we have a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline with Homebrew Happy Hour. And once we can talk about it, or once we have something to show you, because the worst thing is I jump the gun a lot about exciting things, and then people are like, oh, I want to find out about it. It's like, oh, it's coming soon. And then it might take a month, and then no one cares anymore. Like, I want y'all to get excited and then boom, punch in the face with something to go see. So we're very close to that. It's very exciting. But Brian, thank you so much for submitting the question. A great time in the show to remind you, when we take your question on the show, we do give you a $25 gift card to the sponsor of that show, which for this week, it is homebrewsupply.com. So Greg and Brian, thanks for submitting your questions. Mr. Burns, thank you for your time. I'm happy that you're back on the show. Let's not be strangers on the show. I thought you were avoiding me. Some people who are listeners thought that you got stuck up in Martha's Vineyard. By stuck, like purposefully, they mean.
I've been working 12 hours a day on rental property. So it's been a rough 9 days. So I'm actually really glad to be back in the office, in my air-conditioned office, sitting in my comfortable chair.
You sounded giddy when I asked you what you're doing. You're like, I'm catching up on emails. Like, It was hilarious. But thank you again, sir, for doing the show, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submitted question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, homebrewsupply.com, for supporting our podcast and the homebrewing community. Go to homebrewsupply.com. You can use our promo code HHH for 5% off, or for the month of July, use the promo code JULY on any order $100 or more, and you'll get free shipping. On behalf of the absent James Carlson, Todd Burns, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.